On the one hand, Kyle Whittingham could be putting together one of the best staffs in the Big Ten. On the other hand,
you are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all so much, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. The ranking of pressure, that's what I'm calling the second segment on today's show. Which coach has to win the most of the 8 that remain in the college football playoff? And North Texas. Yes, indeed. They get their own segment today. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Rugiet. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. So, Kyle Whittingham is, as I record this show, trying to hire both Jason Beck, his offensive coordinator, and Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator from BYU. It would be an elite staff, top tier. And Kyle Whittingham has not been away from coaching for a long time. Kyle Whittingham has not forgotten how to coach. He just showed that. Won 10 games with the Utes. Would have been 11 had he stayed for the Las Vegas Bowl against Nebraska. So on the one hand, as I mentioned, boy, it's an exciting time to be a Michigan Wolverine. What? You've even got Bryce Underwood reposting on his Instagram. I kind of hate that I have to mention that, but you know what? It's noteworthy. We all know that it is. He's reposting on his Instagram that Kyle Whittingham got hired. That's a good sign. There's nobody. There are a couple other players you'd like to keep if you're Michigan. Nobody more important than Bryce Underwood. Okay, seems like that could be a good first step. Hiring an offensive coordinator who can explain his vision. Yeah, that'd be good. Here's the other side of things and why Michigan fans might not like me today. We've had a very love-hate relationship, haven't we, Michigan fans? They might not love this. I don't love Michigan's schedule in 2026 because my instinct, if he is able to pull off hiring both Jay Hill, an outstanding defensive coordinator who will be working with the best personnel he ever has in his entire career, with a coach he knows very well, who he's gone up against a lot over the last few seasons during his time at BYU. And if he's able to bring over Jason Beck, who is one of the up-and-coming head coaching future candidates in all of college football, There's plenty of reason to be excited in Ann Arbor. Did you know that their schedule looks like this? They're non-conference. Western Michigan, Oklahoma, and UTEP. By the way, I can tell you right now, I don't know how I'm going to pick Oklahoma to win that football game. I think Michigan's going to win that one. Do you know who they have to play in the Big Ten? All four of the following programs. Ohio State, on the road. Oregon, on the road. Home games against Indiana and Iowa. By the way, let's just throw out that Penn State is there. And we don't know yet what Matt Campbell is going to be in his first year at Penn State. But like Kyle Whittingham coming over, it shouldn't be a complete and total reset. Whittingham is taking over a program that has more off-the-field issues than on-the-field issues. Matt Campbell's taking over a program that has more on-the-field issues than off-the-field issues. I think both guys are incredibly capable of fixing the bigger of the two problems that they respectively have to face and making their programs closer to where we expect them to be. And by the way, Michigan was a good team this year, 9-3. Good season. Exactly what I expected they would be. I hope that this schedule for Michigan gets talked about in the same way that Florida's schedule got talked about this year. That Oklahoma's schedule got talked about this year. I hope if we potentially expand the playoff to 16 teams, I shouldn't say we because I would never advocate for that in a million years, but if the powers that be expand the playoff, which Kyle Whittingham hinted at in his opening press conference with the Wolverines, by the way, if that winds up being the case, I hope that Michigan gets the same sort of respect that we hear all offseason on a bunch of shows and from plenty of hosts and content creators out there. Michigan's brutal schedule. Michigan's brutal schedule. I don't think Michigan's making the Big Ten championship game next year. But 9-3 better at least give them a look in a 16-team college football playoff because their schedule this year wasn't quite as difficult. It was not easy. Certainly not. They had to play Ohio State. They had to go to Nebraska, who was a good team before Dylan Raiola got hurt. They won that game, of course. But putting Oklahoma into the fold, who's in the play, I mean, you've got a quarter of the playoff field here. Oklahoma, Oregon, Ohio State. Sorry, you've got, I can't do math. You've got a third of the college football playoff field in the 12-team era on Michigan's schedule next year. And the good news for Michigan fans that are looking at that schedule going, yeah, that's pretty daunting, is you're getting a head coach who's won plenty of big games in his career. But is it all going to gel and fit right away to the extent that you're going to go win two? If you win two of those games, you're sitting at 8-4. I don't think they'll only win two. Let's say they win three. And they're sitting at 9-3. Oh, that's presuming there are no stumbles anywhere else. By the way, Oklahoma's offense probably going to be better than what it was this past season because they're going to work to improve the offensive line. They'll have a lot of returners. John Mateer, another year in the system. So I think you're going to face a better, potentially, Oklahoma team than you did this season, but at least you get them at home at the Big House. That's going to be an awesome football game. I mean, you talk about an early marker of whether or not things are trending in the right direction. That's fantastic. That's a fantastic football game. So I have been pretty bullish on Michigan's 2026 prospects for quite a while because I thought, well, they're progressing. Well, they're moving along. Well, things are going. You got a quarterback in there who will be in his second season. You got a roster that should be really good. Kyle Whittingham's got to do some work in the portal. Find Bryce Underwood some pass catchers. He can't have one guy that he can rely on. It's got to be more than that. There are going to be plenty. I'm going to talk about one of them later on today's show. So there is work to be done, but Oklahoma, Indiana, Iowa, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. Yikes. Yikes. It's not going to be a cakewalk. You better. Now it's almost like Kyle Whittingham better hire a really good staff. If he doesn't get Jay Hill and Jason Beck, who are reportedly his top candidates, you're going to look at that schedule and go, oh, boy, is 8-4 in the fold? We'll find out. We'll find out and see how it goes. But that is a brutally tough schedule. On the surface, of course, you got a third of the playoff field in there. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, however you want to get in touch. Which coach needs to win the most? I will tell you next. First, this episode brought to you by Get Ready. Let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress. From work, money, life, it doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Get Ready is designed to help you take back control. Get Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Get Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. You connect with a board-certified doctor online and everything ships discreetly right to your door. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to rugiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Get Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. 8 coaches remain in the college football playoff. The one who needs to win the most is Dan Lanning. I don't necessarily mean win a national championship. I'm just talking about in these quarterfinal games. So when Oregon lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl earlier this calendar year, they'll get a chance to avenge that, of course, Thursday against Texas Tech. It was a pretty ugly look. Now, Dan Lanning has done a remarkable job. Coming into the season, he's won more games every year than he has the year before. Won 10 games in year 1, 12 in year 2, 13 in year 3. He's currently sitting at 12. Can he get to 14? That would involve him making the national championship game. So this weekend, though, he has the chance to avoid a cloud kind of forming over his program. Last year, because of the way they lost to Ohio State, it's not that they fell in the Rose Bowl. It's how they fell, trailing 34-0 in the first half. That's the last image. That's what people remember. That game followed him all the way to Big Ten Media Days in July. That's 6.5 months after the fact, and he was still getting asked about that matchup. So, of course, they won their first playoff game at home against James Madison, a team we all know does not have the same caliber of players that Oregon has. And so, if you lose in the same spot for the second straight year, and every time you're getting to the playoff quarterfinal, which is commendable in and of itself. Not a lot of programs have made the college football playoff 2 years in a row. It is a short list. Now, 3 of them happen to be in the Big Ten, in Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana. But it is a short list of teams. So that is absolutely commendable. But if every time that you've gotten there and faced a team with similar or better talent, you wind up losing, it can just kind of hang around. And stuff can hang around. And look, this is a dramatic comparison. I'm just using it as a reference. Eventually, that caught up to James Franklin. And I don't think that Dan Lanning is James Franklin. I think he's a better head coach than James Franklin. I know because they went against each other once upon a time. Lanning was in his 3rd year. Franklin was in his 10th, I believe. And Lanning beat him head to head. So that's not the only reason. There are several other factors. But I think the pressure on Dan Lanning is the greatest for that reason. That game went the way it did. That you're in the same position that you were in a season ago. And that you have a perfectly winnable matchup. Your team's healthy. You had a chance to get a little bit of a tune-up game. The schedule and the seeding definitely has given Oregon more of a break this year than it did last year. Last year was actually unfavorable. This year, quite favorable. Their first round game was against James Madison instead of Notre Dame or BYU on a technicality. Well, that's a break. Last year, playing Ohio State in their first game, not a break that was very good and not one that should have happened. So I think there's more pressure for this week, not to break through and win Oregon's first national championship, but this week in particular. I think Dan Lanning needs a win more than anybody else. Number 2, Kalen DeBoer. And I think there's frankly a gap here because DeBoer just went on the road and beat Oklahoma. Yeah, they're in the same position, but who you beat and where you beat them matters. At home against James Madison, on the road against Oklahoma. These two things are not one and the same. So the reason I have DeBoer second is because he's at Alabama, and I think that the Oklahoma win bought him plenty of, you want to call it street cred or a reputational boost of sorts. I think that is a fair way to look at it. Still, this is Alabama we're talking about, and they have not looked or felt like Alabama ever since Kalen DeBoer has gotten there. Of course, they're in a good position now, but they feel like they've taken a pretty sizable step down. So I just think the inherent pressure of being there when you lost 4 games in year 1, and this would be your 4th loss. I know you want a road playoff game. Yep, that's definitely good. I think it's a contributing factor to him still being the head coach at Alabama and not garnering a ton of continued interest, I should say, from Michigan. So that was a hugely impactful day in the college football landscape. There's an alternate universe where Alabama loses that game, which they trailed 17-0 on the road, and Kalen DeBoer becomes the head coach at Michigan. I think that world exists. And Alabama might have said, yeah, we're okay with you going because this is not the way it's supposed to look. So, DeBoer is number 2. Kirby Smart is number 3. And frankly, he could be too high. You know what? Kirby's... No, I'm going to keep Kirby Smart at 3. I almost swapped him with who I have behind him, but I'm keeping Kirby Smart at 3 because I think in some respect, he's carrying some of the weight for the SEC. Georgia is the SEC champion last year, got beat, not soundly, but Notre Dame was definitely the better football team. And Georgia is the SEC champion, not just because they're the SEC champion, but because of the way they have played over the last month or so of the season. I think they are the SEC's best chance to make a return to the national championship game. Now, if you go back to before this season began on this show or literally any radio hit or podcast appearance that I did all over the place, when someone would ask me, well, what's your number one storyline coming into this year? It was, will the SEC make the national championship game? They have missed it for 2 years in a row for the first time in about 2 decades. If they miss it for a third straight year, oh boy, things are going to feel tense down there where it just means more. So if Georgia, who can absolutely go win the national championship, loses this week, boy, not a good look for the SEC. So I put Kirby Smart just ahead of Curt Cignetti. He's got the number 1 team. There's inherent pressure that comes with that. Oregon didn't handle it very well last year, or maybe they just truly ran into a really bad matchup against Ohio State, but they didn't play the way they were capable of. What does Indiana do? They will have had a long layoff. They've got Alabama traveling all the way across. Oh, Indiana also going for a really long trip because that's what we do. These teams that got a bye, by the way, should be playing home playoff games. I just want to reiterate that. It's not something that can be said too often until change actually happens. Dan Lanning even said as much about their game with Texas Tech. He said, yeah, Texas Tech should have home field advantage. He's right. He's 100% right. So Curt Cignetti should be playing a home game in Bloomington this week. Instead, he's going to the Rose Bowl to play Alabama. They're going all the way to the other side of the country. They have to feel like, wait a minute, we're not actually that far apart. Why are we going over there? Anyway, college football, man, you got to love it. You can hate it sometimes, but you got to love it too because it's the best. But when you have the number 1 team, yeah, that's the only inherent pressure. He has overachieved so tremendously, winning the Big Ten, beating Ohio State. He's lost 2 games to teams that were in the national championship game last year. I honestly thought about putting him lower, but when you have the number 1 overall team, there's got to be some form of pressure there to win and deliver. Plus, Curt Cignetti, pretty chatty guy. And when he goes out and says, yeah, we want to adopt an SEC schedule, all those sorts of comments and that fun debate that I'm sure will be reignited on this show and many others when the offseason rolls back around. Yeah, there's some pressure to go out and win in a big game like this. So you're literally playing the conference runner-up who you called out for their scheduling tactics. Well, yeah, it'd be good to win. So I've got Curt Cignetti there. I've got Joey McGuire next, coming in at number 6. And the reason is that Texas Tech is the new kid on the block. It's their first time making the college football playoff. It's their first time winning the Big 12. They have already accomplished so much. And yes, they are a team that I do believe could go and win the national championship. I think they're good enough to do that. Am I picking them to do that? No. But do I think they could? Sure. Absolutely. The defense is real. The offense can do enough. When Baron Morton has time, he's really, really good. And when he's healthy as well. But because of the climb for Texas Tech's program, like the contrast with them and Oregon in that semifinal game is so fascinating because they are both programs that have spent a lot of money to put themselves in this position. And they have taken plenty of flack along the way for doing it, but they're holding up a conference championship trophy. Now, this doesn't apply to Oregon this year, of course, but if you think back to when Chip Kelly really catapulted them onto the national stage, they were the Pac-10 champions 2 years in a row. And that was when the uniform thing started, and that has, of course, snowballed into where we are right now. But I tell you, my computer screen for some reason just went black. And thankfully, we're still recording good. But boy, my heart dropped for a moment. I thought I was about to shut down. I was about to lose the entire show. Okay, so Joey McGuire, there's a house money element to Texas Tech's season. Yes, it would be disappointing to lose the only playoff game you play. Winning a conference championship and getting here is far more of an accomplishment for Joey McGuire and Texas Tech than it is for any of these other coaches. Now, I still believe that McGuire is 6th and Mario Cristobal is 7th. And I feel kind of the same way. Miami going on the road and beating Texas A&M, I think that's kind of their peak. I think for what their team is this season, I didn't think they would make the playoff. I had them going 9-3 when the season started. Because I thought they would lose to Notre Dame, but they found a way to win that game, go 10-2 in the playoff. This was that game was the culmination of the continued build that Mario Cristobal has shown. They've gotten better every year. 5 wins, 7 wins, 10 wins, and now here you are at 11 with a playoff victory. That again, similar to Texas Tech, is very much putting your team in a situation, from my vantage point, that it's kind of gravy. Like, it's just all, it's wash of sorts. It's like, yeah, it'd be great to get that. Of course, you want to go out there and compete, you got a really good team. But how many of you are going to pick Miami to go win the national championship? I'm not. I think they're losing to Ohio State. I think the Buckeyes are beating them pretty comfortably. So, I don't think he has as much pressure. And then the guy with the least amount of pressure is Ryan Day. Crazy thing to say for a guy that has got a bye and is playing Miami. But guess what? He's got a path to go win another national championship. He just won one. If he loses, there's no questioning whether he can win the big game. There's no debate about what Ryan Day really is as a coach. Can he break through? No, we know he can do all that. Just didn't happen to do it this year. Get Julian Sain back for 2026. You still have Jeremiah Smith. You'll be good to go. You lose Caleb Downs. Ohio State recruits pretty well. They'll be just fine. So, in order, pressure to win this week. Number 1, Dan Lanning. Number 2, Kalen DeBoer. Number 3, Kirby Smart. Number 4, Curt Cignetti. Number 5, Joey McGuire. Wait. Hold on for just a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that. I just prepped this whole segment, forgot to count. And you know what? I forgot to put Pete Golding in here. I could very easily re-record this segment and not give you guys the honest take, but that is legitimately how I'm thinking about it. So Ryan Day is actually 7th, and Pete Golding is 8th, because what in the world could you expect from a guy who's given that situation? He's coaching his 2nd game ever, and he's playing the Georgia Bulldogs. So Ryan Day is 7th, and Pete Golding is 8th. I knew I was forgetting somebody in there, but I can't expect that much out of that situation. Okay, we need to talk about North Texas. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Fridays feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. And if you wanted to bet anything college football playoff related, guess what? FanDuel's got you covered. Lines, point totals, money line, prop bets, FanDuel is there. If you feel like you know, well, here's what I'll just officially recommend. Fade the picks. I can't figure it out this year. I'm going to come back stronger than ever next season, but I have not been able to figure it out in a major way this year. So, get ready to fade the picks. You'll probably make some money. Even before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour as well. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. The North Texas trio are going to enter the transfer portal. That's Drew Mestemaker, Caleb Hawkins, and Wyatt Young. That's the leading passer in all of college football, the leading rusher for one of the best offenses in college football, who just completed the best season in their program's history with a bowl win over San Diego State, 11 wins. They were one win from the college football playoff and the right to go play Ole Miss and lose by a lot of points. And Wyatt Young, the wide receiver, their leading pass catcher, also going in the transfer portal. Now, their head coach, Eric Morris, has gone to Oklahoma State. It would make plenty of sense for these guys to go with him. Same coach, same system, new conference. It's a jump, but it's not as big of a jump in competition, so you got to feel like the production is going to be replicable there. And let me just pull up Oklahoma State's schedule real quick in 2026. These guys are going to draw interest from other schools, and I believe they already have. Oklahoma State in 2026 opens at Tulsa. Better not lose that one again. They play Oregon. They play Murray State. Their Big 12 schedule has got Arizona State, Houston, Iowa State, and Kansas State on the road. Yikes. Houston just won 10 games for like the third time in the last 15 years. At home, they've got Colorado, Texas Tech, Kansas, UCF. They also play at West Virginia. Not exactly a cupcake schedule there for Oklahoma State, but compare that to a Big Ten school like Michigan, for instance, or a school like what Florida has had to play over the years. And what I would warn against if I were advising these three individuals currently playing in the American Conference would come on two fronts. Number one, the jump in competition is going to be real. Ask John Mateer. It is going to be a lot harder to play football if you go up to the Big Ten or the SEC, which I do believe are better than the other conferences, just not always as much better as some like to proclaim. But the other thing, if you're Caleb Hawkins or Wyatt Young, running back and wide receiver respectively, do you fully understand what level of competition you're going to face in that locker room if you don't go to Oklahoma State? Because I think that if any of these guys go to Stillwater, they're going to be surefire starters. I hope they do. I think Oklahoma State being good is good for college football. It's a historically great program for the last 20 years. And I think if these guys go there, I think they can lead the charge in making Oklahoma State relevant once again. So if they do that, I don't think there's any doubt that Eric Morris is starting all three of them. But just be wary. Be cautious if you feel the allure of a bigger school offering you more money. For example, just one cautionary tale. From the same conference, as a matter of fact, Mekhi Hughes was a running back at Tulane. All-conference performer. In 2 years with the Green Wave, he rushed for over 2,700 yards and 29 touchdowns. He was phenomenal. He transferred to Oregon, and they legitimately thought they were bringing him in to be RB1. And I know for a fact that they like the kid, that they think he's good, that he could do well. Here's what happened. He did indeed get paid to be RB1. He ended up redshirting the season because they had a couple true freshmen come in who were better than they thought they were going to be, at least right away. I don't think that's happening at Oklahoma State. But if you go, I'm not trying to tell these kids what to do or what not to do. I'm just saying you've got a surefire thing, I would suspect, if you go to Oklahoma State. If you go anywhere else. I think this is more applicable for Hawkins and Young, the running back and wide receiver, less so for Drew Mestemaker. But still, John Mateer had his team in the college football playoff. John Mateer also got beat up this year. Mestemaker's more of a pocket passer. I think he could fit very well at Indiana, but there's a risk. That's just what that's what I wanted to hop on here and say. There's a risk if you go to one of those schools that maybe you won't wind up playing a ton. Mekhi Hughes is just one example. There are a bunch of others out there. Guys left their smaller school to go to a much, much bigger school for much, much more money, and then they don't wind up seeing the field. And then they'll probably be in the portal next year and wanting to go back to Oklahoma State. So Just throwing it out there. Just food for thought on a Monday. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.